Hi, I'm Patrick Heffernan. I lead the professional services, IT services, and digital practice here at TBR, and I'm with my colleague Boz Hristov, and we're talking about the second year of our Digital Transformation Insights portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, the portfolio is certainly a part of an evolution of our business model as well. It's a way of we're looking at the business when it comes to how companies are making their business, the business case, from the bridge between traditional services as well as the impact, a lot of the emerging technologies essentially that are putting some more opportunities, creating some gaps as well in the portfolio, in the vendors' portfolios, as well as changes the dynamics in the relationship between the vendors that are supporting enterprise initiatives around digital transformation and how also vendors are reacting and thinking about what's next in their own business as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to digital. As you mentioned, it's part of the second year of our research in the current format. We certainly have had pieces of that portfolio for the last almost 5 years now as part of our ongoing services research. But the way we presented it today and the way it comes out in a monthly publication schedule, it does capture. It's more frequent, it's more consumable, it's easier to really embrace the ongoing changes and the fast dynamic changes, especially when it comes to emerging tech in areas such as edge computing or quantum computing, 5G, blockchain, artificial intelligence. There's so many pieces and there's so many questions. Usually, the normal initial questions that come from our clients, as well as a lot of the enterprise buyers that are engaged in those initiatives, is how does one make money? What's the business case of an emerging technology, and where do we go from there?
So I'm glad you mentioned quantum because I think it perfectly illustrates how we went into last year not sure which of the emerging technologies we would cover. I was skeptical on quantum. I still am, as you know. But we included quantum in the second emerging technologies report in 2019, and this year we're leading off for emerging technologies with edge computing. And edge compute for me again was something I guess I was skeptical because I didn't fully understand how IT services vendors and consultancies were actually going to make edge a business case. What was going to be the way that they include edge in digital transformation engagements? And so we had to look at a bunch of different use cases. So in order for it to really come to an understanding, and so and I think it goes back to, for us, when we're talking about digital transformation and we're talking about emerging technologies, use cases are helpful because we're always trying to understand what's the business case for the IT services vendors and the consultancies. How are they going to make money with this?
Yeah, its business case is always, like I said, it's a good bridge into the technology and the business world, essentially. It makes it easier for, again, answer those questions around budgeting and ROI, essentially, when it comes to a new technology. Edge is certainly one of those areas as we think about where the market is. But I think edge is an important piece of the broader puzzle when it comes to how cloud evolved, not just the technology landscape, but the business landscape, and what cloud went through in terms of how the ebbs and flows of cloud adoption, where cloud is today, and maybe where are some of the missing components of that ecosystem when it came to the technology stack. And certainly some of the issues that we've seen with cloud that like such as latency and connectivity and expense within our cost structure. It's a piece that there's some hopes and some bets around edge that vendors and buyers are putting on as a result of the technology getting a little more advanced. Certainly other pieces of the ecosystem like IoT sensors as well as 5G, it's kind of like on our doorsteps are important to consider, not just cloud, but again, the ecosystem is evolving. It's coming to a play where not one technology can do it all, just like no vendor can do it by themselves when it comes to service delivery. And it's an evolving relationship between technology vendors, between services vendors, between buyers, and really what's important when it comes to using the right data and how data is being used. Because when it comes to data, certainly, I think, especially just going back to Edge and mentioned quantum earlier, I think this is a key element to understand which data to use how you can use the right data, how can you get to the right data, and how fast can you use that data. Not just any data, right? Because the big data phenomenon has been going on for a while, but I think it's not just the big data, but it's the right data.
That was the eye opener for me around Edge, was how, so we've been talking forever about all this data coming in and all the concerns with cleansing data, making sure you have the right data, protecting data, analyzing that data, and the assumption was always that you just grabbed all the data. And so the idea that part of the reason why you use Edge compute is that you're not taking all of the data and sending it up to the cloud in order to analyze it. You're actually letting that decision over what's most important be decided at the edge. And again, when I first began to understand the concept, I didn't see how this was going to translate for IT services vendors and consultancies, sort of a so what. But it makes so much more sense now if you can say the business case for this new technology, which again, and we struggle with this when we talk to voice of the customer, when we talk to the customers of IT services vendors, we struggle with the cost. How much are you really going to be willing to pay for this mirage of digital transformation if you can't actually see the benefits? But with Edge, there does seem to be that opportunity to cut back dramatically on how much you're spending on cloud storage or on data storage, how much you're spending on getting that data up to the cloud. So I understand it, and it's, I think with all of these emerging technologies within the context of digital transformation, with all of them, we keep coming back to how's it going to make a difference for the IT services vendors and the consultancies. And I think with every time we do this, it's sort of an eye opener. Like, oh yeah, all right, that is how it's going to make sense. And until we dive into it completely, it's really hard to see. And keeping the portfolio flexible means, while we're thinking now, all right, Edge, and then in a few months it's going to be, I think, 5G.
Right? 5G is coming up,
And then after 5G, I don't think we've made up our minds what comes after that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a few others like AR and VR, some use cases. We mentioned.
I keep being skeptical on everything. But
we're looking at quantum as well, kind of getting back because it's just so new and so many moving pieces from quantum, and certainly worth it revisiting a year later after we publish some of the initial research on quantum. The rest of the year. So there's certainly the flexibility is there, but overall, from a complexity standpoint, when it comes to technology, I think it's adding one more technology in the stack kind of can turn buyers off sometimes, often, especially from the cost part. But I think the overall evolution of the market is reaching an inflection point where buyers are moving a little bit far into the right when it comes to digital transformation. If you go from a legacy on the left and then a digital transformation, how they're actually trying to go into transforming their business processes. And I think Edge being that streamlining piece is a perfect example of trying to not be so much of a threat to cloud from a storage and server standpoint, but more of a complementary piece and an extension of cloud. But again, enabling and enhancing the value proposition around data quality and really trying to be a little bit more, enabling services vendors to drive the time to insight as a key KPI that actually can demonstrate the ability to operate in these hybrid IT settings.
Right. And as you can tell, the two of us could talk about this all day, but instead we're going to write as much of it as we can down and share it as part of the Digital Transformation Insights portfolio. As Boz mentioned, it does come out every month. That's a different cadence for us at TBR. It does force us to write down a little bit more what we're thinking and not just talk about it. But we'll be sharing that as these months go on in 2020. We'll keep sharing how we're looking at the digital transformation insights world as a whole. And in particular, we'll talk about some of the things we're seeing around use cases that are illustrative of where emerging technologies are being applied in digital transformation engagements. And most importantly of all, what does that mean for the IT services vendors and the consultancies who are trying to make money off this?
I mean, it's emerging technologies, partner ecosystem, and evolving relationship with the buyers as well.
Yep, so all makes sense. So thanks, and we'll see you next time that we decide to sit down and talk about digital transformation.
Thank you.